Speaker.
Thank the member for Melbourne Ports and call the member for Dawson.
Well, thank you much, Mr Deputy Speaker. In November 2011, a collection of extreme green groups, many of which are subsidised by the Australian taxpayer, produced a report called Stopping the Coal Export Boom. In that manifesto, there is a litany of lies, deception, hijacking and environmental terrorism, or at least a plan for it, perpetrated by the Green Lunatic Fringe in an attempt to stop the expansion of the Abbot Point coal terminal. On one hand, the extreme Greens talk about 10,000 ships a year based on every possible mining project going ahead, even the ones that have been ditched. And on the other hand, they argue that the current Abbot Point coal terminal should be, the expansion should be stopped because there's insufficient demand and the port's operating below capacity. Well, which is it? Are there too many ships or not enough? You can't have it both ways. Is it too many ships they're worried about or too many people employfully gained? The extreme Greens have hijacked the Great Barrier Reef, telling the world about Australia apparently dumping toxic dredge onto the reef. Well, the stuff that's being put onto the reef isn't toxic and it's not being dumped onto the reef. But the last thing the Greens actually care about is the truth. Equally as outrageous is their demand that Abbot Point not go ahead because a Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority report said that dredge spoil travelled further and had more impact than previously thought. But now the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority has released an interpretive statement to accompany the report that says that the risks assessment in the study were for comparative purposes only and could not be used to assess the impact of a particular project. That interpretive statement says, and I quote, "Due to budget and timeframe constraints and the technical challenges posed by the large spatial coverage and the extended period for simulation, it was necessary to make a number of simplifying assumptions. Some of the assumptions, for example, no consolidation of material, all placed material is resuspended and no resuspension of sediments in shallow water, do not reflect real conditions, leading to a lack of alignment with existing field measurements." It goes on to say, "These assumptions resulted in the model overestimating the dispersion of dredge material from placement sites in both the amount and distances travelled." So if the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority can tell the truth and stick with good science, as it should, why cannot the Greens? I can only imagine what would happen if a private enterprise employed such a tactic as the extreme Greens. If a CEO of a company were to publish such blatant misinformation about the operations of another organisation, I dare say they would be hauled before the courts and quite possibly find some sort of sentence passed on them. This is yet another green lie fabricated to destroy the Abbot Point project as a means to achieve their own socialist agenda. And I say to the Greens, stop the lies, get out of the way of decent people trying to earn an honest living. Let's have Abbot Point go ahead for the sake of all North Queensland.